The Order of Whispers is one of the biggest factions in Tyria. But when did they form? Who was the founder? And where are they from? Today we're gonna uncover the story of the Order of Whispers. So hello, welcome to my channel. Here we'll learn the lore and stories of Tyria. Sit back and relax as we dive into the full story of this great order. As always, you can find the full lore on the official Guild Wars 2 wiki. Now let's begin. The Last Hope of Elona. Long before the Elder Dragons rose from beneath Tyria, and long before the Pact would ever exist, Elona was already a land shaped by conflict, pride and ancient ambition. The great provinces of Istan, Korna and Vabi stood divided in culture and rule, each proud of its own traditions, yet vulnerable in their separation. That vulnerability became critical when a single warlord began to expand his reach across the desert sands with relentless ambition. His name was Palava Joko. Joko's undead legions swept through Elona with terrifying persistence, and over time it became clear that no single nation could resist him alone. Fear spread not only through villages and cities, but also through the minds of rulers who began to understand that survival required unity rather than pride. It was in this moment that Turai Ossa, a war marshal of Elona, rose to prominence. Turai was not remembered merely for strength in battle, but for clarity of vision. He understood that fragmented resistance would always fail against Joko's expanding empire, and so he brought together the forces of Istan, Korna and Vabi under a shared purpose: to end Joko's conquest. The war that followed was long and devastating. Entire generations were shaped by it, and countless lives were lost in struggles that would later become legend. Yet, through persistence and coordination, Turai's united forces eventually achieved what once had seemed impossible. Joko was defeated. However, victory revealed a deeper truth that would define Elona's future for centuries to come. Palava Joko could not be permanently destroyed. His essence endured, and so he was bound and imprisoned beneath the sands of Elona, sealed away rather than erased. Turai understood that this was not an ending, but a pause. A prison without a guardian would eventually fail, and a threat like Joko would not remain silent forever. From that realization, a new responsibility emerged, one that would outlive him. The First Whisper. When the war ended, Elona slowly returned to peace. Armies disbanded, borders stabilized, and people attempted to rebuild lives that had been consumed by years of conflict. To the world, the story was finished. Turai Ossa believed otherwise. History had taught him that threats rarely disappeared entirely. They faded, waited, and returned when vigilance weakened. A prison, no matter how carefully constructed, would only remain secure if someone continued to watch it. Turai gathered individuals he trusted, not for their fame or power, but for their discretion, perception, and willingness to act without recognition. Scouts, scholars, messengers, and agents who understood that truth often mattered more than reputation. From this foundation, he created the Order of Whispers. Its early purpose was singular: ensure that Palava Joko remained contained and that no attempt was ever made to free him. But over time, the Order's role expanded far beyond a single prison. Its agents built a network of observation and intelligence across Elona and beyond, gathering information that often prevented crises before they could fully form. The Order learned that knowledge, carefully gathered and properly interpreted, could alter the course of events without a single battle being fought. The Whispers became a presence that most of the world never saw, yet often benefited from unknowingly. Their influence came not from visibility, but from precision. As centuries passed, their scope of study widened. Ancient ruins were investigated, forgotten records were preserved, and fragmented histories were pieced together into something larger than isolated myths. Among these fragments were recurring references to an ancient and catastrophic truth: the existence of the Elder Dragons. The Order did not discover the dragons as a new concept, nor did they claim exclusive knowledge of them. Rather, they preserved and assembled surviving records that described them long before most of Tyria treated them as an immediate reality. These records painted a consistent warning across multiple cultures and eras. The dragons had risen before, and they would rise again. The Order attempted to share this knowledge, but most dismissed it as exaggeration or myth. The Whispers continued regardless, guided by a principle that did not depend on acceptance. Truth remained truth, even when ignored. When the Elder Dragons eventually awakened, the fragments preserved by the Order of Whispers became invaluable, not as prophecy, but as context for survival. The world changed rapidly in their wake, and so did the Order's role. The Whispers became one of the key organizations that later joined forces with the German Priory and the Vigil to form the Pact, uniting knowledge, intelligence and military strength against threats too large for any single group to face alone. Their contribution was not command or conquest, but information, identifying threats, uncovering weaknesses, and revealing what others could not see in time. Their motto reflected this enduring purpose: know what cannot be known. Shadows beneath the desert sun. Over centuries, organizations evolve, and the Order of Whispers was no exception. As Elona changed, so too did the individuals who operated within its hidden networks. Differing philosophies emerged regarding how to best protect the region and what responsibilities the Order should prioritize. At some point within this long and poorly documented history, a separation occurred. A group broke away from the Order of Whispers and eventually became known as the Order of Shadows. The exact circumstances of this division are not fully preserved in historical records, and even within Whispers' archives, the reasons are described only indirectly or inconsistently. What is known is that the Order of Shadows developed its own identity and focus, remaining primarily tied to Elona while continuing the tradition of secrecy and intelligence work. Their efforts centered on maintaining stability within the region, observing political shifts, monitoring dangerous locations connected to the realm of torment, and preserving knowledge of Elona's past and present. Unlike the Whispers, whose scope expanded all over Tyria, the Shadows maintained a regional focus that shaped their methods and priorities. Over time, they developed a reputation for pragmatic and often morally ambiguous decision-making. Outsiders sometimes interpreted their actions as inconsistent, as they might support different factions at different times depending on what they believed would preserve long-time balance. Within their own philosophy, however, those decisions were not contradictions but calculations. Stability, in their view, was not achieved through loyalty to any single power, but through the careful management of competing forces. This approach made them both respected and distrusted in equal measure. Yet, even those who questioned them often acknowledged their effectiveness in preventing regional collapse or unchecked escalation of conflict. Despite their separation, the Shadows and the Whispers remain linked by origin, methodology, and a shared understanding that information and secrecy could shape the fate of nations more subtly than armies ever could. When the world broke open. When the Elder Dragons finally awakened, the warnings preserved by the Order of Whispers transformed from obscure records into essential knowledge. Entire regions of Tyria were reshaped, civilizations fell, magic itself became unstable as dragons rose across the world, each bringing its own form of destruction and corruption. The Order, which had long prepared for the possibility of such an event, now operated within it. Their intelligence network, built over centuries, became a critical tool for identifying dragon movements, tracking emerging threats, and coordinating responses across fractured regions. Alongside the German Priory and the Vigil, the Order of Whispers formed the Pact, combining scholarship, military strength, and intelligence into a unified resistance. Each order fulfilled a distinct role. The Vigil fought directly, the Priory sought understanding, and the Whispers gathered information that shaped strategy and prevented catastrophic miscalculations. In this way, Turai Ossa's legacy expanded far beyond Elona. The organization he founded to guard a single prison had become part of Tyria's global defense against extinction-level threats. The Quiet Legacy. History remembers those who stand on battlefields, but it rarely remembers those who prevented the need for battle in the first place. The Order of Whispers exists in that silence. Its greatest successes are often defined not by what happened, but by what did not. A war avoided because intelligence arrived in time. A catastrophe prevented through early intervention. A hidden enemy exposed before it could act. The absence of disaster as its most common legacy. Turai Ossa understood this when he founded the Order. He understood that protection did not always require visibility, and that sometimes the most important actions were those carried out without recognition or reward. That principle endured through every generation that followed him. It shaped the Whispers as they grew into a continent-spanning intelligence network. It influenced the Shadows as they developed their own regional philosophy of balance. And it continued into the modern age within the hidden halls of the Chantry of Secrets beneath the city of Lion's Arch, where agents still analyze fragments of information that may one day prevent the next great disaster. Across Tyria and Elona, unseen observers continue their work. They gather fragments of truth, connect patterns others overlook, and act only when necessary, often without ever being known. Most will never learn their names, most will never see their efforts, and most will never understand how often the world has been quietly preserved by decisions made in silence. But that is not a flaw in their legacy, it is its foundation. Because from Turai Ossa to the present day, the Order of Whispers has remained built on a single enduring truth. That knowledge, once understood and carefully used, can shape the fate of the world more profoundly than any crown or sword. And so, the Whisper continues. This has been the lore and story of the Order of Whispers. I hope you enjoyed this video. The history of the Whispers is really cool, and its connection to Elona makes it a deeply rooted faction within Tyria. Also, apparently, they're all addicted to apples. With that said, thank you for watching this video. Please like and comment something you thought was interesting or something that I missed. Also subscribe to not miss future lore content in this format. Now, take care, and I will see you in the next story. Goodbye.